Khamira is a Khajiit from the video game franchise Elder Scrolls Online. I made Khamira primarily from leather. The under tunic was made with thin pig suede, and the bodice, vest jacket, gauntlets, boots, and hood were made from cow leather. I chose to make the pants from stretch pleather to give a wider range of movement in the legs without creating any extra wrinkles or bagginess. Patterning the clothing was drafted by draping paper on a dress form. The paper patterns were transferred to garment leather for each of the pieces, then sewn together. All the pieces were machine sewn with thick nylon thread, then each costume piece was weathered using water-based leather dye and a sponge. The watered-down dye was applied to each piece, and the excess dye was wiped away to create dynamic shading in the recessed sections of the garments. This technique ages the costume to make it look older and well-worn. The tabs of the collar on the jacket were made with warbler. The tabs were patterned from paper, then cut from warbler. Each warbler piece was layered from 2 pieces for extra strength and rigidity. The warbler was heated with a heat gun and shaped and textured by hand. The tabs were then painted gold with Rust-Oleum metallic gold spray paint and given a simple ink wash to make them look aged and dirty. The tabs were stitched directly to the leather sections with thick nylon thread, and the thread was touched up with paint to conceal the stitches. The final costume pieces were hand-punched and stitched with leather strapping and thick wax thread to embellish the finished garments. Concealed straps and Velcro hold the garments in place so they do not shift as I move around. The head was sculpted from cellu clay, using references from the video game as well as images of large cats. When the cellu clay fully dried, I used a vacuum form machine to make a hollow head base out of styrene. The eyes were created in Photoshop, printed, then glued to an acrylic cabochon using E6000 to create a following realistic eye effect. The nose was sculpted from oil-based clay, a mold was made from silicone, and cast with flexible foam material so it would look and feel more realistic. The teeth were cast from resin, and the tongue was cast from silicone. The head base was covered with faux fur. The faux fur was patterned using duct tape. The fur was cut and then attached to the head with hot glue and hand stitching. The fully furred head was then shaved with pet clippers to make the facial features more distinctive. Final touches were added to the head using 2-part epoxy to create eyelids and lower lip. The boots were modified from a commercial pair with the tongue cuffs added to the top edge. I used Angelus leather paint to blend the colors to match the rest of the leather pieces. The daggers were carved from EVA foam using PVC pipe as a rigid structured core. The daggers were layered with 3 pieces of floor mat EVA foam glued together using contact cement. The daggers were sanded and dremeled for the final look. Then the foam was sealed with a heat gun, primed with Plasti-Dip before painting. I used Rust-Oleum silver spray paint and an ink wash to get the desired colors for the daggers. The final paint job was sealed with a clear matte varnish spray. The handles of the daggers were then wrapped with leather strapping. The tail was made with a simple 14-gauge wire core wrapped in upholstery foam. I covered the tail with faux fur and sewed the belt clip to the top so it would clip to the inside of the costume in the back of the pants. The wire allows for me to bend the tail into any shape I desire. The entire costume was made over the course of several months. I put in approximately 120 hours of work for the finished costume.